Hey team, we are live. Thank you so much for being here. First and foremost, if you are watching on the replay, you guys know what to do. If you're watching and tuning in on the replay, regardless of the platform that you're watching on, drop us a comment and say hashtag replay. It's always good to know when you guys are tuning in, watching, when you're watching. It's actually quite interesting for me to see who's tuning in live, who's tuning in on the replay. And I can see there's people jumping in live now, which is very, very cool. Drop us a comment and let us know where you are, who you are, and can you hear me okay? Please let me know. I'll do my usual check, make sure that the sound is all a-okay. But please drop me a comment and just let me know if you can hear and see me fine. I can hear myself and see myself okay. I am super excited for this show today, guys. This is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a value-packed one. I just know it because this is somebody that I've worked with before. I know they know their stuff. They're good. You're going to love it, and you're going to get a lot from it. So I'm just going to get this party started and cue the introduction. I always get like slightly nervous before I do this intro. Still early days doing a live introduction. So let's do it. Let's hit record and let's go. Hey there, you are listening to the Funnels and Growth Show. My name is Gavin Bell, and I've discovered a little bit of a problem. You see, too many entrepreneurs are great at what they do, but they never see true growth. All too often, they rely on luck, hustle, and hope to grow, which, as you may know, is probably not the best marketing strategy. So in this show, I aim to uncover the secrets around creating a marketing system that allows you to build your audience, generate more leads, and acquire customers at a profit. Now, on today's show, we have someone that I was introduced to around maybe 3 months ago. You know, I put a post on Facebook asking for an email copywriter. I had a 5-day challenge coming up. I needed somebody to write emails for me because it's not my strong point. And I got like a ton of requests. I got, not requests, comments, maybe like 30 recommendations for people. And I went through every single one of these recommendations and I looked at who's best. I looked at their profile. So are they writing anything? Are they actually, showing what they're good at? And I looked at the people that were being recommended multiple times and I went and I did as much research as I could. And this person that we have on the show today was the person that got recommended the most. It was the person who I went to their site, looked at their Facebook, was the most impressive. And I knew I had to get her on to the show. She's best known for helping online course creators and coaches get intentional about their marketing and their mindset so they can live life on their terms. Speaking my language here, folks, she's the founder of the Email Copy School and the host of Your Intentional Life podcast. So, please, everybody, help me put your hands together. Just go absolutely mental at home. Go crazy at home as I introduce today's guest, which is Brittany Bayley. Welcome to the show, Brittany.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. Like I say, in the introduction there, we've known each other for 3 months or so. We worked together. And from that time that we worked together, I was like, I need to get Brittany on the show because she is good at what she does. So it's great to have you here. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Me too.
Yeah. So let's get straight to business. The important stuff, which is you've got 2 cats.
I do.
I have 2 cats as well. And I want to know, maybe this is a question we should put out to the listeners is, does that make us crazy cat people?
No, I have a theory on this. So if your cats outnumber the people in your house, then you go into crazy cat lady territory.
Okay.
But it's me and my husband and we have 2 cats. So I think that we're in the safe zone.
Okay, I like that because my theory would be like if you have 3 cats, then that's maybe tipping the edge. But I think I prefer your theory in that it's the cat ratio, the human to cat ratio.
Yep, it's a ratio thing.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I'm glad because we just got little Lily recently, and she's like 12 weeks old, 13 weeks old now, and I was concerned. Did that tip me over the edge? Did that tip me over the edge? But no. So let's dive into the world of email, the world of email marketing, which is obviously the area in which you specialize in, and the area in which we've worked together in. And it's something that everyone has to do or everyone does. So it's an area in which there's a lot of improvement to be made. And I want to know what made you niche down into email initially.
Yeah, it was kind of a process. So I started out in journalism school and just doing, articles and that kind of thing. And then when I started freelancing, I was doing all of the things copy related. I was doing blogs, I was doing websites, I was doing sales pages, and they were all fun. Like I was enjoying myself. But then someone hired me and they were hiring specifically for an email project. And I was like, yep, I've done emails before, sure. But when I got on that project and I could just laser focus in, I realized how much I enjoyed emails because they bring in all the other pieces of traffic. Like you have to take into account how people are getting onto the list, how people are being nurtured, all of that. But then also is bringing in like the overarching marketing strategy that I loved about sales pages and all that, and it was in this one little container, and I started geeking out on everything email, and I didn't really brand myself as an email copywriter until way later when I realized it'd been like 8 months and I hadn't taken a project that wasn't email copy. And I was like, oh, I guess that's my thing now. And then, as Expert Secrets came out and like a lot of, it became clear like you should niche down and have an expertise. It kind of just, it worked out that way. But I just genuinely fell in love with writing them.
Awesome. So it was like it kind of fell onto you, and then you realized a passion for it, and you just went all in on it.
Hmm.
Amazing. So when you were, the the copywriter that was doing everything, was that a case? What did your client acquisition, or I mean, in the way of how did you get clients? How did it differ from when you're a general copywriter to focusing solely on email? Was it different? Was it the same? What did it look like?
It was, yeah. So when I was a generalist, and I tell my students this now, when I was a generalist, I was actively always going out to get projects. I was putting feelers out, I was in Facebook groups, I was doing things to get projects. And I do that to a level now. But now, like you and I, we connected via recommendation. And that has been the bread and butter of my leads because people know what I specialize in. And when you're an expert, people know what to refer to you. When you're just a generalist, like I was, it was like, oh, if they think of me, like if I just happen to cross their screen, maybe they'll recommend me. But now it's like you hear email copy and you think me. That like the recommendation game has been so critical in my business development from that, just from niching down into email. So it really has changed the game for me to become an expert in one thing.
Yeah, and you're like strict with that, because I remember after you wrote the emails for my launch, I asked you, do you do sales pages as well? Because I needed somebody to write my sales page, and you were like, nope, sorry. And as much as it broke my heart, it was like I was like, fair play. That's awesome, because I think a lot of people, when they maybe do niche down, you know they still take some of the scraps from the other places as well, because it's like it's work, it's money, right? So it's very cool. And I want to touch, I want to go into your sales process here. And I want to share what it was like to work with you, from my perspective. And for everybody listening, the reason I want to do this is because a couple of episodes back, we had Dennis Yu on the show, and we were speaking about how you should turn your service business into a process. So, like, you should have a process to work with your clients. It shouldn't be, bespoke every time. And the example that he gave there was one of, when you go to a restaurant, you don't expect the chef to create something brand new every time you go into the restaurant. There's a set menu. And he was saying, well, we should have a set menu for our business too. Like I think of another term is, productized service. And when I first reached out to you to find out, how we could work, I was genuinely like geeking out. I know that a lot of people call this, funnel hacking, but I was genuinely geeking out just at your sales process, because what I probably expected to happen was, we exchange a couple of messages on it on Facebook, and this is what I want. Brittany, can you do it? You quote me a price, and you go and do it. Yeah, like standard, maybe copywriting gig. But what happened was you had this like really set process, which I feel from you as a business owner makes it a much better service to deliver, but I also found it was a much better service to receive as well, because there was like a set process. So what happened was I reached out to Brittany. I said, I'm looking for somebody to do this. And Brittany sent me off to a form, which basically asked all of the information that she needed to know in order to decide whether or not uh, we were the right fit. Then we jumped on a quick call to go over some of the things on the form. And you're going to have to correct me if I forget this. After you had all of that information, you quoted me, we agreed on that, which by the way was like all online tech, contract signed online, all of that fun stuff. So it was super easy. And then after that, I believe you just got to work on the emails that I had. But some of the things that I thought were key was you were saying things like, um, once I've written the emails and you've got the emails and you review them, you've got 48 hours to go through them and to make any changes, which I can then go back and review. And I was like, oh, that's good, because now that's forcing me to do the work right now. Otherwise, I might just put it on the back burner. And so I guess why I'm telling this story, or why I'm sharing this process, is I want to know: did you design that process based on anything? Like, was there inspiration behind how you designed that process? And have you always had a process like that, or did you used to be that freelancer that maybe kind of just did everything bespoke?
Yeah, I did used to be that freelancer. And so really the process I have refined throughout my years. So I've been doing this for about 4 years now. And that doesn't sound like a terribly long time, but when you're in your business 24/7, you learn a lot pretty quickly. And so my first, for my first couple of gigs were like done solely over Facebook Messenger. And then I would like send them a link to my PayPal, like it was just very, quick and easy kind of thing. And then as I grew, I was taking on bigger projects and it didn't match in my head. I'm like, I'm asking for this certain number and I'm going back and forth with you on Facebook Messenger. Like this feels kind of weird. And then I created this process that was really over the top. I took some advice of like some really big agencies. And so it was like really, really over the top. And it was like all these boxes had to be checked and this and that didn't work. And so I really kind of took that and stripped it down to, it's me. I have a very small team. It's me, a marketing assistant, and then I have a junior writer who will take on some things for me. And so I took it and was like, this is my team. This is my people. And we don't need this massive thing, but we also can't be doing Facebook message. So what can I do that's in the middle here? And so it started to just kind of refine from there. Like what you mentioned, the 48-hour timeline, I realized if we didn't put that there, business owners are super busy and they have a lot of things going on. And if we don't put that guideline in, it can be 6 months down the road before we hear back, and then we might be swamped and we're not going to give them the attention that they deserve. If they're coming back and saying, well, this needs to be tweaked, that's valid. But if we don't book in time for that editing, then we're going to be, right in the middle of another project and we're not going to be able to give it to them. So it's kind of just like developed, it's like street knowledge. It's just been tested. It stood the test of time. But I appreciate your feedback because it's always great to hear how it is on the customer's end.
Yeah, it just makes a huge amount of sense, because, like you say, with a client service business where you're providing a service, I think there's definitely that balance, because if you go way, I mean, I've been there too. Like I remember I used to have this huge ass form that I made people fill out if they just wanted a conversation with me, which just annoyed people really. And on the flip side, I used to be somebody that just took calls for free for no reason, and I just ended up wasting time. So it's about finding that sweet spot in the middle. But I think with client services, there's often this like idea, probably from the client side and also from the provider side, that it needs to be this bespoke service. And I think what I learned from working with you is that, I mean, it is a bespoke service in that you wrote emails from scratch for us, but the process in which you did that wasn't necessarily bespoke, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would say that the majority of people that I speak to probably do not have a process in place like yours. So when you were that, freelancer that had no process, what was the kind of initial step that you took? Because I think it might be quite daunting to people if they're like, well, I have no process, to go, oh, Brittany's got an amazing process. What was like that initial step? Was there, you know, did you ask, did you create a form that people had to fill in first? Or was it, right, we're just not doing Facebook Messenger, we're taking people to email? Or what was the first thing for you?
Yeah, it was actually a calendar. And it was like a Calendly link, because before I was going back and forth with people in Messenger, like, does this time work with you? Does this? And then you start to factor in, like, I have a lot of clients internationally. So you start to factor in time zones, and you're like, okay, great, I'll see you at 1 p.m. They're like, 1 p.m. my time, right? And then you're like mentally like counting back. So I went and I created a Calendly form, which does it automatically. It'll ask them what time zone they're in. And I booked out. At first I did, I think I did Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and I did like all afternoon availability. And then I kind of tweaked that as I like grew into what I was creating. And now I only do calls on Tuesdays. So like you and I, when we connected, it happened to be on a Tuesday, and I had time right away, and we were able to connect. So I only do calls on Tuesdays, and I book, like, I know that I'm going to connect with people all day on Tuesday. And that's just like a mental thing for me. That's that. So that would be a great first step, so that you're not like living in your inbox. You're not trying to go back and forth. You're not even feeling like you need to hire a VA to go back and forth, because that just gets more complicated, because they need to ask you and then they need to ask them. It's like adding an unnecessary step. So create a calendar, and then within that, you can start to build out a form. Like when I transitioned, I would do like, why are you contacting me? Who recommended you? Like, you can just start to do like 1 or 2 questions and just see like what the response is, see how helpful it is for you to have that information going into the call, and it'll kind of start to snowball from there.
Yeah, I love that. Calendly is an absolute lifesaver. That the amount of time that I've spent going on like World Time Buddy to try and figure out time zones, and then you say like, okay, we'll do 6 p.m. on Tuesday, and then they take 3 days to get back to you, and by the time they get back to you, somebody's already booked 6 p.m. on Tuesday, and then it's just an absolute nightmare. So yeah, I love that. Get Calendly, guys, and set up a super simple form, and just start. We spoke about the power hour with Dennis. Like, just start protecting yourself a little bit more. I also love the idea of only taking calls on a certain day, for 2 reasons. One, like you say, a mental thing. It's if you're almost like mentally prepared to take calls on Tuesday, as opposed to, it can probably get, for me, it certainly gets annoying if my diary starts getting packed up on a day where I thought I was going to have free time. And also from a productivity perspective, you're blocking your time, so you know that like Tuesdays are the day where I take calls, which just makes total sense. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
What I'd love to do is jump in now to the actual email side of things, because when you wrote mine, I was like, literally, so I sent the brief, and I sent you a video to explain like my story and things, and when you came back with a video, I was like, with the email, I was like, oh my god, I feel like Brittany like knows me better than I know myself. So you've obviously like you're amazing at coming up with these emails and telling stories and having these just being able to craft a great email. So if when you have a blank canvas, so you open up Google Doc, or you open up ConvertKit or Mailchimp for the first time, and it's a blank canvas, where do you start in terms of writing an email? Do you have a set process, a structure, or do you just just let it flow out? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, I do. So I call it the dessert first method. And I start at the bottom of the email. So I actually start with the call to action, and I will start to flesh out what the call to action is, because every email has a purpose. Even if it's an email that's just story based, like Russell Brunson calls them Seinfeld emails, people call them value emails. Even if it's that, there's still a point to the email, right? There's still something that brings it home for the reader. And so I start there. And the reason that I do that is that when I go back up to the top to try to determine my hook or my angle to bring people into the email, it's so much easier because I can see the line of sight to where it's going. So a lot of times I see people get stuck at the top and they're just like thinking about all the different hooks, all the different angles, all the different things that they can do in this email. And it's like they get just overwhelmed. And this allows you to pare down and say, okay, what's going to lead the best into my main point? Like, what's my core point and what's going to lead me into that the best? And that way you can create a hook that's really, really good and really simple. And it's like a straight line. You're not taking people down all these different rabbit trails. You're not doing all these different things. You're actually just bringing them into a cohesive email. And it's like, it gets them. There's nothing to distract them. There's nothing that's pulling them another way. They're just simply in. So I always start at the end.
That is cool. So we start at the end with the main point, the call to action, the offer, the hook, not the hook, sorry, the main call to action, the offer. And then we, from there, work our way to the beginning and we go, right, what's the hook that we can use to bring somebody into that?
Yeah.
That's awesome, because one of the things that I challenged myself to do was to write daily, not an email, but just to write something daily, to get into the habit of writing daily. And there'd be some days where I would just I write in Notion, open up my Notion app and just be like, I don't know what to write. And my brain would do exactly what you said there. It'd be thinking of the hooks. There's hundreds of different hooks. Or if I had like a story to tell without a point, but I thought it's a kind of funny story, I'd be thinking of all the hooks that I could use to get somebody in there. And then my story's not really cohesive. So the key is to think about what you want to actually achieve first and then work backwards. That's awesome. That's a really cool way to think about that. So the dessert method, I feel like that's I'm definitely a dessert guy. I like a pudding, and so I'm definitely going to be using that. And do you think then, when it comes to writing emails, should you be making an offer in every email? Should there be, a call to action in every single email, or do you think some emails are okay to just, tell a story or?
There should be a call to action, but it doesn't have to be what people initially think of when they think of call to action. So call to action is typically like, click this link, join this program, listen to my podcast. But it also can be kind of like a call to arms. Like, I wrote an email for a client the other day, and they were going against like being average, right? And so the call to action, like, they told a story, and then the call to action was like, don't give in to being average, stand up, like, embrace life, use your brain. Like, that's a call to action. You're not taking your client anywhere. You're not taking the reader anywhere, but there's a purpose. Like, when they're done reading the email, they're going to do something. And that's really like the core of a call to action, is to like inspire action, right? So there should be something that's like at the end that lets them know they got to the end, that gives them something, but it doesn't have to be a link. It doesn't have to be, something that takes them externally. Typically what I do for my list is I do 2 emails a week. And so the first email is a traditional, it leads to my podcast. Or if I've done an interview that I want to promo, then I'll do that. And then my second email of the week on Thursdays, I write, like today, I rate like what's going on in my life, what's going on in my world. It's more of like a value type email. And then I do have just a call to action that's more not click based. And it's just, what's going on and how we can, like, my whole thing is living on our own terms. Like, how can we continue to embrace life? How can we challenge the norms? How can we do this thing that we're all doing as entrepreneurs, right? So that's my call to action weekly for my readers.
Awesome. So when it comes to your like Thursday emails, then how do you structure those? Do you structure it in the exact same way? So are you sitting down on a Thursday or whenever you write them and you go, right, the thing that I want them to realize in this email is I want them to, making this up, I want them to exercise more. I want them to go out and go for a run to, build their health and to live life on their own terms. And then from there, start thinking of a story in your life where that resonates. Or do you structure it differently when there's not necessarily like an offer?
Yeah. So I structure it the same way. Sometimes it's a little more loose if there's no like specific call to action, but like for this email, we were talking about how to question things in your life that are like that you've been putting up with. My title was, what are you tolerating in your life? Like, how like if your shoes are in this one spot and you always have to move the thing to get to your shoe, and it's like every single day you're doing this like kind of obnoxious thing and it's draining your energy, like when you're doing these things over and over. So what are you tolerating? So that was a common theme for me this week. And I knew that I wanted to write around that theme. I just didn't know exactly what story was going to come out. So when I do get to that Thursday, I will brain dump what my bottom piece of my email is going to be. Like, what's the charge for them? What's the thing that they're going to walk away with? And what am I going to ask them? What am I going to say to them at the end? And then I'll go up and I know that this has come up for me this week. So I'll kind of sort through the stories and find the best one that leads into the call to action, nice and simple.
Okay, cool. The reason I ask that is because I've been toying with this idea. Well, let me give it a little bit of context. Is I realize I'm not good at storytelling, and it's a skill that I want to get better at. And so I've been buying books and studying how to tell stories. And I've been doing this thing called Homework for Life, which is where you every single day you write down, if you were to tell a story of that day, what part would it be? And so I'm trying to get better at the storytelling thing. And one of the reasons I want to get better, or one of the areas in which I can see it being a benefit, is in my ability to write. So if I'm writing an email, I can, get a story in there, or if I'm writing a post, I can try and craft a story in there. And so I ask that question because sometimes I'm like, how do I write an email that tells a story that isn't like a promo email for a podcast, or for a blog post, or something that is coming up? So that's really cool to get an idea of your your creative process around there. Speaking of which, storytelling is, I was in the shower this morning and I had a random thought, and this is actually not a question that I had written down that I want to ask you, but in almost every email I see marketers write, the initial email that you get when you sign up to something, they always say, like, add this email to your whitelist. That's something I have never ever done. I've never added an email to a whitelist, and I quite frankly wouldn't know how to do it. So is that something that we should be doing, or is that something that's just, been taught in textbooks for years and actually doesn't work?
I'm so glad that you asked this question, because I have been talking about this in one of the masterminds that I'm in, and we were having this conversation. I was like, out of curiosity, has anybody whitelisted an email ever? And they're like, no. But the interesting thing is you can get that action. So we call it like a whitelist action, right? You can get that without asking people to whitelist. So I'm going to tell you the secret. You basically, when you're sending a fulfillment email, so whenever somebody downloads something or buys something from you, that initial email, you ask them to respond. And so the way that I do it is I say, P.S., hey, just to be sure that you're squared away, can you hit reply and let me know that you got this? Nice. And I get at least 50%, if not 60% of people that hit, because it's so simple, hit reply, got it. And if you can do that, and then I'm going to credit my friend Ashley Gaynor. So Ashley Gaynor, she does writing for funnels, and she also does some book writing. She will send them an email about 45 minutes after, if it's a purchase, about 45 minutes after, and she'll send an email that says, hey, can you let me know like what tipped you over the edge? I'm just doing some research. And she gets them to reply to that email. And what happens is your email service provider, so like ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, it measures and pays attention to what people are doing with their email. So if they're marking it as spam, whatever, if they're replying to it, it tells them that it's valuable and it's going to whitelist you. So essentially, if you can just bake those two things in, then you're vastly increasing your chances that you're going to end up in inbox versus promo or spam, which is what whitelist is. It moves you from one of those catch-alls to their primary inbox. So if you can get them to reply in those first two emails, you're good. So yeah, you don't have to do that whitelist thing.
Nice. Because I realized I never really told the story of why I mentioned the shower. I had a thought in the shower. I wasn't just telling everyone I had a shower this morning. That it was a thought. I was like, hold on a minute. Sometimes I've put it into my sequences, like add this email to the whitelist, but I've only ever done that because I've seen other people do it. And it's not something I'd have going right now, but I was like, I've never done it. I don't know how to do it. So I wonder whether, it's actually a legit thing. But I'm so glad that you've asked your audience that and nobody has done it.
Yeah.
And the key is to get it whitelisted without asking for them to whitelist. Because again, if you use that text in your email, you're using up like valuable space, right, for something that people aren't even going to do. So when it comes to email, I think that, or something I have heard quite a lot is, especially here in the UK where we're a little bit more conservative, is questions around the frequency of emails. So I have some really good friends, Rob and Kennedy. They're the email marketing superheroes. That they're one of their things is they just email daily, and they always have emailed daily, and that's one of their big things. But I know that there's a lot of maybe apprehension around writing emails daily for the point that you might annoy people, right? So how, when it comes to frequency of emails, do you have any thoughts on what is a good frequency, what's a bad frequency, what's too much, what's too little?
Yeah. So I always say bare minimum, you should be emailing your clients at least 4 times a month. Like bare minimum, at least once a week, because without that, you don't have data to work with. So when we talk about like benchmarks with open rates and click rates, and when we talk about unsubscribe levels and cleaning your list, if you're not emailing 4 times a month, then you don't have accurate data. So that's a bare minimum to me. I do twice a week. I've just found that that's like my natural groove. I always tell people to do what works for them in their business, because it's tough to say like a blanket statement like, I love that they're emailing once a week or once a day. Obviously that works for their list and their people who are reading it. Some people would feel like they maybe don't have enough stories for that, or their business isn't really, like if I was getting an email once a day from maybe like an e-com place, like I just bought some mascara from this place and they email me about once a week and that's about right. If I was getting an email every single day asking me to buy mascara, I'd be like, I'm out, right? So it kind of depends on what you're selling. It depends on your storytelling. It depends on kind of like everything in that. So I never, like some writers are very polarized. They're like, no, you only do it this way or you only do that way. I'm not that way. I definitely think that there's room to determine what's best for your readers and what's best for your business and what you're offering your list. But bare minimum 4 times a month. I do twice a week. That's what I tell my students to start with. And then you can kind of determine, based on the data that you're getting back, should you do more? Should you do less? Do you find yourself wanting to write more? If that's a good sign, then you can start writing more, seeing if people are responding to you, all of that. So you can kind of take into account how kind of responses that you're getting.
Okay. So if we're like a service-based business owner, coach, consultant, whatever it might be, and we're currently writing once a week, let's say. I think probably most people write once a week if they're in the space and they're actively marketing. What would be the trigger points to suggest that they should start writing more?
Yeah. So a couple different things. One is if what you're writing a week is just kind of like a value email, and you start creating content on another platform, like you are doing your show, if you were only doing a value email, I would say, hey, maybe you should add an email to your weekly sequence that says, I just went live. Here's how you can catch the show. So if you're a service-based business and you're doing just a value email and you start to create content somewhere else, you can add in a second email very easily that points to that piece of content. If you're doing the opposite and you are a service-based business and you're only talking about how to get access to a show or something that you're doing, consider adding a value type post or type email. If you find yourself feeling inspired, if you find yourself wanting to communicate something to your audience and you're not sure what medium to communicate, sometimes we're like, is this a Facebook post? Is this an Instagram post? Start with your email, like see how it goes. Throw it out there. See, I know a lot of people are like apprehensive and then they do it and they get like a ton of responses in their inbox. They're like, that's exactly what I needed today. This is so helpful. Oh my gosh, I read this at a stoplight on my way to work and it helped, like you will start to get those responses and you'll know, okay, I need to do this more. And so you can kind of start to determine.
Cool. So someone who does this really well, I think, is who you recommended me to speak to for my sales page, which is Danny Page.
Mm-hmm.
She writes an email. I don't know what day it comes out, but she's one of the only emails that when I get them, I read them, because she like tells cool stories about her life and then ties it back into like a business lesson, which I think is it's a really cool skill to have. And thanks for sharing the frequency thing there. I think something that I am definitely going to do personally from this is the only emails that we put out are our promo emails for like the podcast. And I definitely want to get back into writing these value emails and forcing myself to be creative in the art of writing and telling stories. So thanks for the kick up the bum.
Absolutely.
When right, let's think about somebody has just created a lead magnet, they've just built a funnel, and they know that one of the main parts that is writing an email sequence that goes on the back end. So they download a lead magnet or they book in a consultation call, they then go into an email sequence. What are and what are some of the things that you feel need to go into that email sequence? So maybe that's specific emails that you always include, or maybe it's specific stories that you always try and get that person to tell. What are some of the things that, so somebody, they're listening, they're like, right, I've got a lead magnet, or I've just created my lead magnet. I can't wait to get it out to people. I've just built my landing page and I'm going to start running my ads tomorrow, but I have no email sequence. I don't really know what to write. What are some of the things that they need to have within that sequence?
Yeah. So I really think of that sequence as a context sequence. So if you are doing a lead magnet, right, and you're marketing to cold traffic, what context do they need about you, about your business, about your mission, about why you're doing what you're doing in order to get them to the next step in your value ladder? So we really want to give them kind of like your origin story, right? Or your start story, what started this whole thing for you, what your journey has been, all of that, and really build a connection with them. So you're doing a couple of things in the sequence. You're giving them context, you're giving them the frame that they need in order to take the next step with you. But you also are kind of training them in the way that you email. So you are letting them know, like you just mentioned with Danny Page, like you open her emails, you have started to be trained to know that there's good stuff in that email, right? You know, when you see her name, it's going to be a good story or a funny story or whatever it is. You're starting to train your new subscribers. And so when you are telling them, hey, this is what happened in my life, this is why I started this, you're starting to have them go, okay, when I see that name in my inbox, I click it. When I see that name in my inbox, I might hit respond, right? That's the goal. When I see that name in my inbox, I might click on something. We're starting to build that foundation and that trust with them. So it's really just kind of a sequence where you want to bring people into your world, give them the context that they need, as if you bumped into somebody in a coffee shop and they were like, sit down, tell me about yourself. Like that's what you want to tell them in that email to give context for them to take that next step.
Got it. Context for the next step. That's the simplest way I've ever heard somebody explain that. And I think that's going to give a lot of light bulb moments to the people that are listening. Because I think oftentimes we think about the tactics that we need to put in there. So it's like, tell your story and then, make an offer in the PS section and make sure your headline has a number in it, for example. But it's not always about the tactics. It's about like what's the underlying strategy, which is give people context for the next step. So I absolutely love that. Brittany, it is time to interrupt proceedings to play a game. You ready for it?
I'm so ready.
It's time for the game round. It's like the Highland Games, but on a podcast.
There we go. So the game that we're going to be playing today is the 5-second rule. Have you ever heard of it?
Like if you drop food.
It's not that game. No, it's not. I'm not going to ask you to drop food and.
Then no.
No. Okay. Cool. Well, the rules are simple. So I have 10 cards in front of me here, and on each of these cards there is a statement. And that statement has something like name 3 types of vegetable. You have to tell me carrot, potato, and onion within 5 seconds. If you get it, if you get it right, you get a point. If you don't get the point. So I'm just going to count out the cards here, make sure I have 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The last guest that we had, Jordan Paris, he got 6 out of 10. I think Dennis Yu got 9 out of 10. So the pressure is on. I always find this is the best way to get to know someone. Let's see how they react under pressure. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do this. Name 3 things you can do in the air.
In the air,
Yep.
go on an airplane.
That's
Eat.
time. These things can be hard. That was a
These
tough
are
one.
Okay.
Okay. Name 3 places to find water.
A stream, a pool, a lake.
Nice. Now we're off. Name 3 boy bands.
One Direction, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC.
Nice. Are you a boy band fan?
No, those are like 90s. That's the last time I listened to a boy band.
That's hilarious. Name 3 things you do that annoy your parents.
That annoy my parents. I don't know.
Time out. That's funny. Name 3 places people keep their money.
A wallet, a safe, a bank.
Nice. Name 3 grocery retailers.
Publix, Winn-Dixie, Walmart.
Yes, just in time. Whew. Name 3 ocean creatures. Creatures that you find in the ocean.
Dolphin, shark, stingray.
Nice. We have name 3 types of cake.
Vanilla, chocolate, strawberry.
Nice. Name 3 things beginning with the letter K.
Kool-Aid.
Time's out on that one. And the final one, we're rocking with the pop groups again. Name 3 pop groups beginning with the letter B.
Backstreet Boys. Oh God, I don't know. I'm so
Time's
bad.
out. That Backstreet Boys, Blue, and I wouldn't get that. You got 6 out of 10. It's a respectable score. It's a respectable score. We've realized that you are an expert in boy bands. As long as they don't start with the letter B, then we're good.
We're good.
Okay, now we're moving on to the rapid fire round.
Okay.
Time for the rapid fire round. 10 questions, 10 answers, no context. Are you ready?
So I am going to read out 10 questions, and you have to give me an answer without giving me any context. So,
Okay.
first one is favorite book.
Built to Sell.
Nice. I haven't read that one. Favorite word.
iPhone.
Nice. Nice. The new iOS came out today. You know, what you thinking that? Most hated food.
Eggplant.
Good one. Biggest pet peeve, either business or personal.
Being late.
I hear you. What was your dream job as a child?
Journalist.
Favorite music genre?
Country.
Nice. I'm really into my bluegrass music right now. Don't know where it's come from, but country, folk, bluegrass, I'm all into that. What's your drink of choice?
Water.
Nice. Healthy. Are you a morning or a night person?
Morning.
Would you rather cuddle a baby panda or a baby penguin?
Would I rather cuddle
A baby panda or a baby penguin?
panda?
Nice. Nice and cuddly. And final question is, what is one parting piece of advice that you can give the incredible listeners we have?
Do one thing. Pick one thing from all of the stuff that we talked about in this episode and go out and implement it, whether it's getting a Calendly account or starting to write your list more than once a week. Whatever it is, just pick one thing and run with it. Start to do it. And when you do that, you're going to create some momentum, you're going to generate some results, and you're going to be able to go from there. So don't get overwhelmed and try to do 15 things at once. Just pick something and run with it.
That's some good advice. Have you read that book, The One Thing?
No, but it
it's a
sounds
good
like I would like it.
Yeah, it's a good book. I mean, I've just told you what it's all about, and sounds like you got it. Do one thing. But folks, I have a page of notes here. If you're listening, chances are you're going to have a page of notes. But go do what Brittany said. Just do one thing. Pick one of those things and take action on it. Brittany, it has been an absolute pleasure. That has honestly been I was going to say an action-packed, maybe not action-packed, it's a podcast, but that has been a value-packed episode. Some of the things that you spoke about there are Yeah, amazing. Like the dessert first method. That's an absolute game changer to anyone that's like struggling to write emails. The frequency of how long we should write emails, what the email should be about in terms of the context sequence, all amazing things. Now, let the listeners know where they can find you, where they can listen to you, and all of those fun things.
Yeah, you can find me BrittanyBayley.com. At Brittany Bayley on Instagram is the best place to reach me. That's where I'm the most active.
Awesome. Well, folks, if you are looking for somebody to write your emails, if you're needing help with your emails, go and reach out to Brittany, because I just love the emails that she wrote for us. They helped us massively in the 5-day challenge that we just recently run. So if you enjoyed this show, be sure to head over to mrgavinbell.com/podcast, and you'll be able to see the show notes from today's show, as well as the links to all of Brittany's amazing, amazing work. And if you enjoyed this podcast, take a screenshot of your phone right now, post it on Instagram stories. You heard Brittany, she's over there. Tag me, tag Brittany, and it would be great to hear what you enjoyed. What's the one thing you're going to do from the show? What, not the one thing that you took, the one thing you're going to do. Share that with us, and that would be awesome. As well as go ahead over to Apple Podcasts, the podcasting platform of your choice, and hit that subscribe button. And I will just love you forever. I truly will. Brittany, thanks so much for being here. It's been fun. It's been great. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
And that is the podcast wrapped up. We are still currently live. We have a couple of comments in there. Stephen says he has 12 people in his home. He cannot have 13 cats. Understood. Glad that's the one thing you took away, Stephen. Mark says, awesome suggestion for the replies. I think he's speaking about the whitelisting. Get replies to whitelist somebody. That is a solid piece of advice there. Folks, everybody that's watching live, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Like we spoke about there on the podcast, go check out Brittany and just her amazing work, her podcast, everything. Go check her out. And as always, I appreciate you being here. If you're watching on the replay and you've made it this far, comment replay. Tell us the one thing you're going to do from this show. And we will see you all very, very soon.